Hello everyone, welcome to the What If Anime YouTube channel. Today, we're diving into an exciting new story that will take your imagination to the next level. Let's get started.
What if Naruto become a dragon Juubi in elemental nations?
Now let's start. Let's find out. Kyoto, Japan, home of the yokai faction, and city under the direct guardianship of one of the only two Kyuubi no Kitsune in the world. Until now, a few miles outside the city, a reverberation shook the ground and sky, as if a subwoofer the size of the moon had just started blasting. Based through the planet, there was no sound, but the disruption was easily visible. Following the vibration, a white flash split the night sky, a flashbang from a god. When the light faded, a strange group of people stood where none had been before. There were 12 of them, 10 of which had animal features and tails. The first was a raccoon-eared and tailed sandy brown-haired boy with yellow eyes and tattoos down his arms. He wore a white t-shirt with the kanji for 1 on the back, and black cargo pants, a giant gourd on his back. The second was a female, blue-haired teenage nekosho with 2 tails covered in blue flames. Wearing a skimpy purple and black top, and a form-fitting pair of pants, the kanji for 2 on the left buttock and another on the tongue fabric between her b. The third was a large man with Y scars and an eye patch made of what looked like the top half of a box turtle shell held on with a gray shark skin band, his skin strangely gray and his salt and pepper hair looking almost like liquid. He had 3 scaled tails and serrated teeth, his navy blue shirt with the kanji for 3 on the back and his black cargo pants only drawing more attention to him. On his back was a zanbato wrapped in cloth, the skull pommeled hilt sticking over his left shoulder. The fourth was practically a copy of one of the most well-known anime characters in any world, even his name was the same. He was a muscular man with lightly tanned skin, wide eyes, a distinctive gravity-defying black spiky hairstyle, and an orange and blue GI, with the kanji for 4 on its front. He also had 4 furry monkey tails, 3 of which wrapped around his waist like a belt, while the fourth hung free. The fifth was a man, around 5 feet 7 inches with deep blue eyes and long brown hair going down his neck. He wore a tawny shirt and yet another pair of black cargo pants were present, the kanji for 5 on the front of his shirt, his 5 white tails waving gently in the breeze. The sixth was a small child, vaguely androgynous with pale gray hair and almost white eyes with a slight tinge of blue. For she was a girl despite the lack of assets. Clothes were comprised of a large white jacket with a zip-up hood and oversized sleeves. On the back of the hood was the kanji for 6, in a slightly less light gray thread. Seventh was a visibly indeterminate gender, but in fact, was female. Every inch of her skin was covered in a black armor. Not metal yet not biological, resembling the skin of a xenomorph if any of them had ever seen Alien. On her back were 6 insect wings, a tail also protruding from the back of her suit, also covered in armor. The only thing visible through the slitted helmet was her yellow eyes which glowed with bioluminescence. The eighth was a dark-skinned giant, his chest bare except for a harness of brown leather that was almost invisible against his skin. He had slicked back yellowish hair with a white bandana with a black metal plate that had the kanji for lightning on it. 2 brown horns protruding from the sides of his head, right under the headband but before his ears. One of the horns was cut short, almost an inch and a half smaller, ending in a clean flat sheet, obviously sliced. Instead of wearing something with a number kanji on it, he had the kanji for 8 tattooed onto his chest and back with a slightly glowing yellow substance. The ninth wasn't as impressive physically, with pale white skin, dark red hair, almost black, red eyes, and slightly clawed hands. He wore a normal t-shirt, a fox with 9 tails on the front and the kanji for 9th on the back. From the back of his cargo pants were 9 twisting fox tails. While he was less impressive than the others in a physical sense, a feeling of danger emanated from him, strong enough that the others slightly leaned away from him. At least until the 10th turned towards them. He was the most obviously inhuman, his dead white pale skin countered by his black hair, darker than the void of space. 2 bone horns protruded from his forehead, pointing up into the air, extending about 2 inches above the rest of his head. His eyes were unique, red and blue patterned orbs that showed both rings and tomo slowly circling. He wore a black top and black cargo pants that had been cut off right below the knee, slightly ragged on the end. 2 wings protruded from the back of the shirt, one gold. An angelic feathered wing that was almost glowing in the night, the other something you might see in a horror film, a blackened bone wing with what seemed like a void in between the spokes of the wing. Stars visible when he moved his wings. It was as if the wing was a viewport into space, the picture changing as he moved. 10 tails protruded from his back, the color impossible to identify due to the constant haze of power around them. Slowly, though, they vanished one by one, leaving only the wings and horns, and some other minor features. His feet were bare, for obvious reasons. A small, tall, awn-like piece of bone made a movable claw on the back of his feet, his toes more like claws but fully opposable. His elbows also had bone, blades, sticking out of them, nearly 6 inches and razor sharp. His fingers had sharpened nails. From a glance they were obviously sharp enough to disembowel a bear with his hands alone. The most impressive, horrifying thing though, was his aura. It was impossible to not feel the mass of energy and power that swirled around him. Compared to the 9-tailed beast next to him, it was as if he was the combined output of 1,000,000 nuclear power plants at full output. While the 9 tails was a child with a hand crank motor. Completely incomparable. Also with them were 3 others, 2 red-haired women who looked like the same person at different ages. Both wore a navy blue shirt and black pants. The older also had a katana at her waist. They gave off a little energy, but nothing compared to even the first of the 10 beings before them. The final girl was different. Her energy nearly equaled the 9-tailed beast, and in fact she had 9 tails behind her white blouse and gray pants, her white eyes surveying the night, veins bulging beside them. Her tails were strange. It was impossible to say what animal they came from. It seemed to be a blend of multiple. So, the strongest asked, "Can you see anything, Hinata?" The blind but not girl frowned. "It's difficult. There is a lot of ambient energy. The nature energy here is so much more potent, or much more present than in the elemental nations, it makes my Byakugan act up. I think I can make Upchu distinct beings coming towards us quickly though. Their energy is at about Shukaku-san's level." The raccoon-tailed beast pouted. "It's not my fault I'm not as powerful as you guys." He whined. "I chose control over power." The others rolled their eyes, obviously having heard it before. "How far?" The demon asked again. "Ada. 15 seconds. Hinata said. "What should we do, Naruto-koi?" The now named Naruto smiled. "Nothing. Whoever they are not even powerful enough to hurt Shukaku, so if they aren't stupid they won't attack us." Thus reassured, all 13 of them just waited, their stances relaxed. "And now, Matabi, the Nekosho," said with a small chuckle as she timed the newcomer's appearance perfectly. A fox yokai." The newcomers were obviously confused about what the group was. The only ones of a recognizable race were Matabi, Kushina, and Reina. Kurama lacked any other kitsune traits besides the tails and eyes at the moment, so they were unsure if he was a yokai or something else. "Who are you?" the older of the 2 kitsune said, the younger one little more than a girl. Both had 9 tails, yet their power was maybe equal to Shukaku if they were combined. Their confusion led them to sound more hostile than Yasaka wanted. The feeling of tension started to increase as both groups merely stared at each other. Gahahaha. Shukaku broke the silence with his loud laugh. "This is a Kyuubi. Kurama, you must be so proud of your people, hey." Yasaka grew red as she turned to the Ikibi, only for Kurama to act first, casually backhanding the one tail into a tree. "Shut up. Just because you're technically my little brother doesn't mean I won't kill you," he snarled at the fallen one tail. Yasaka just watched as the 2 fought, the punches and kicks of this Kurama, cracking ground and demolishing trees as the other stopped it with, was that sand. The gourd on his back was pouring out a seemingly limitless supply of sand, its fast movement. NTS blocking nearly all of Kurama's attacks as the 2 fought. She wanted to say something, but before she could speak a towering pressure cut her off, forcing her to her knees as Kuno started to cry, her eyes wide with fear. Despite the pressure not being aimed at her, Yasaka was extremely fearful, and the 2 who were the target. Both of them fell to the ground, unable to move as their bodies froze. "That's more like it," Naruto spoke, his eyes showing amusement. I don't think a fight is the best way to introduce ourselves, Shukaku, Kurama. You can beat the snot out of each other later. Grumbling, Kurama nodded, and the pressure vanished, both he and Shukaku getting to their feet and brushing themselves off. Now then, Naruto continued, maybe we should let our guest speak. Please, go on, he said, courteous to the Kyuubi and her daughter. Well, my name is Yasaka, the older Kitsune said. I'm the guardian of the ley lines here, and I was alarmed when all of a sudden they flared. Before 13 new presences appeared, with power that I've never seen before, in any being. Naruto snickered lightly at her words. In other words, you panicked and were worried we were hostile, he translated easily, but now. What? Yasaka blinked. He was asking her what to do. She realized she had been seeing him as a boss type, someone whose power allowed them to order others and not have to follow. A plan maker, not follower. This, though, blew those ideas up. He was honestly asking what to do, his slight smile genuine. Well. She thought for a moment, I guess it depends on what your intentions are. Naruto's smile grew. Not much, he admitted. I just came here to get a new start, maybe have a few fights, eventually move on. I'm a being of battle, but I can appreciate peace too. Anything that would fit. You said you're a guardian. Does that mean you're a leader? Yasaka nodded, an idea blooming in her mind. Come to think of it, she mused, I have a few things had need doing. I'd need to give you some background, but if you're strong enough to rip a hole through your dimension, with enough power to make the earth itself react, I'm pretty sure you'd work. I knew hardly a chibi. Yasaka was jumping around and cheering, a banner hanging over her with the words, Yokai Faction, new number 1. Well, where are we going then? Naruto asked, and how do we get there? Yasaka gaped as the Kamui portal faded away, having only been told to focus on her home, before the swirling movement took a hold of her. She quickly ran to a trash can and threw up, Kuno following moments later. Naruto and the Biju just laughed, not maliciously but amused at her response. Luckily it was tempered by Kushina and Reina also doing the same, their vomit being energy, instead of a liquid or solid. What are they anyway? Yasaka thought, not for the first time. Her eyes roamed over the group, looking for hints. 3 were obvious, with a maybe sorta for 2 more. The two-tailed one was obviously a Nekosho. Extremely rare and obviously powerful, though the heatless blue flames on her tails were strange. The 2 that barfed with her were human, regardless of the energy she felt from them. She was unsure about the male 9-tailed one. His tails resembled kitsune tails, but he had no other aspects, and his yokai felt off. It felt like a cross between yokai and senjutsu chakra, with a side of magic. A blend of all aspects. The only other one she had an idea about was the first, one of the long-thought extinct Tanuki race, his. Control over sand was strange though. Tanuki were aligned with earth and water, not earth and air, but maybe she was overcomplicating things. Either way, she'd find out soon. Alright, if I'm going to be trusting you with our security, I need to know what kind of yokai you are, and what your full forms look like, she said, worrying a little bit at a few of them. The 2 redheads and the blind one's energy seemed unformed, so their forms would be interesting. If they even could access them yet, the others would be good to see. They exchanged looks all around, the blind girl meeting their eyes with unerring accuracy. Do you have a really big area? If we all transform here, we'd crush about a mile, the girl in armor said, her voice sounding as though multiple voices spoke at once. And if Naruto-sama transformed into his full form, no barrier could contain his power. You'd have these so-called devils and angels attacking in minutes. Yasaka blinked, surprised at the statement. How big is the largest of you? She asked, apprehensive. Well, if you mean in pure height, over 600 feet at his shoulders. The biggest if you mean just physical size is over 70 tons, most of it muscle. Not counting Naruto-sama's full form. We don't know how big he is since we've never seen it. His power is greater than all of us combined, though. Yasaka started praying inside, to whatever god watched over Kitsune, likely Inari. Well, we could. Naruto cut her off. I can transform in this very room, he said. Kurama has seen my real form in Reina's cage. All eyes snapped to the Kyuubi, who nodded silently. But Cho-chan is right. If I transform, you'd better be prepared for a siege. Or I could just do it in the Kamui dimension, he suggested, getting nods from each of the Biju, which equated to another nod from Yusaka. Kamui, he said softly, the world vanishing, replaced by a series of plain boxes, stretching on into infinity. So, let's go in order. Naruto clapped his hands, introduce yourself then transform. Shukaku nodded, turning to Yusaka. Ikibi no Shukaku, one-tailed Tanuki, first of the Biju. He said, sand starting to swirl around him, obscuring him from view. An instant later, the sand bow loomed outwards as he took his full form, absorbing the sand into himself, a giant Tanuki with black markings and one tail. My powers are of magnetism and sand, with a high ability to manipulate earth and air. Quote, Yusaka gaped, and Kushina whispered to Reina, if she's stunned by Shukaku, she'll be unconscious by the end of this. The blue-haired Nekosho stepped forwards, Nibi no Nekomata, Matabi is my name. And I am the two-tailed monster cat. She was engulfed by blue flames, before they faded to reveal a four-legged cat, resembling a tiger made of blue flames, with two tails. She was about 3/4 the size of Shukaku, and her flames were not giving any heat off. My powers involve the dead, fire, and healing. Quote, the Sanbi stepped forward, setting Samahata down. Isobu is what you can call me, Sanbi no Kyodai game. Though they left out shark in my name. His eye patch expanded, covering his body in a giant dome of turtle shell and gray skin, before slowly it shifted, swirling around until he was a perfect ball. Topped by the shell, the front of the skin cocoon split open, revealing the one-eyed gaze of the Sanbi, Isobu. My powers are over the water and I can grow coral to immobilize my enemies. Along with draining energy through touch. Quote, Goku stepped forward, and smirked, my name is Son Goku, just call me Son, Yonbi no Suru, king of the sage monkeys, and four-tailed. Biju, a golden blast of light enveloped him and the author's voice rang out, okay, the outfit was pushing it but no Super Saiyan you asshole. The golden light retreated, showing the red-furred Yonbi. Looking around for a source for the voice, whatever, he said, shrugging his massive shoulders, my powers are over earth, fire and lava. Quote, Kokuo stepped forward, his narrowed eyes looking straw-eyed at Yusaka as he tossed his hair back. My name is Kokuo, the Gobi no Irakauma, with powers over steam and gas, with some small influence over fire and water. I also have a fire resistance able to neutralize the Nibi's flames. Only the cursed Amaterasu could hurt me, he bragged, before his hair started to grow, blocking their view as he shifted into the Gobi, nice to meet you. Quote, the shy little Saiken timidly stepped forward. My name is Saiken, she said softly, Rokubi no Namakuji. My Biju form sorta gross, or so I'm told, please don't try to salt me or something, it doesn't work and it's just weird. She put her forefinger and thumb in a circle, before blowing through it, a bubble engulfing her, turning opaque as it grew, before popping to reveal the six-tailed slug. My powers are over acid and poison, and I can use bubble jutsu to make traps and mines. Chome stepped forward, her echoing voice more excited than normal. My name's Chome, or Lucky 7 if you want. I'm the Nanabi no Kabutomushi. Her armor grew larger and larger, slowly shifting into a different form, that of the armor-clad seven-tailed beetle, her buzzing wings starting to lift her up. My powers are over insects, air, and light, to a certain extent. I also am able to summon bugs as I wish, and can see what they do, making them spies. Gyuki finally stepped forward. My name's Gyuki, ya fool, ya fool. He said, making a gesture, only for one of Sun's tails to whack him on the head. If you didn't like rapping, don't you try to. You'll just make Naruto-sama mad. Quote, Sun rubbed the back of his head, fine. His body shifted as he started to grow, the ape tentacles out of his back curling around him, before swelling to a giant size, then opening like a giant flower to reveal, I'm the Hichibi no Kyogyu. And my power is over water and lightning. I also can make ink at will, using it to spray smokescreens. Quote, Kurama stepped forward finally. My name's Kurama, the Kyuubi no Kitsune or Kyuubi no Yoko. Whichever you please, last of the Biju. His yokai exploded around him, engulfing him in an opaque orange shell. Feast your eyes, he said with a small laugh. as his nine-tailed form towered over the other Biju by almost a quarter of their size. My powers are complete and perfect control over yokai and chakra, and complete sovereignty over wind, fire, and earth, as well as demon arts. And finally me, the youngest of the tailed beasts, Naruto said, his smirk growing, I am the Juubi no Kijin, but you can call me Naruto. My powers are mostly only limited by my imagination and creativity. The original Juubi was a primordial god, and I have access to all of that. It's hard to control though. His energy began to skyrocket, as the other Biju bowed, before a light engulfed him, shifting him to his demonic form. It looked vaguely humanoid, with white hide and black hair. It had 10 horns, ringing its head like a crown, and black hair. Its eyes were the same Rinnegan that Naruto had, and it had his wings still. Its arms were thick, with long claws, and its legs had talons on the end. It was approximately 7 feet tall, with 10 tails fanning out behind it. An aura of power radiating from it, strong enough to completely dwarf the Kyuubi's power. To compare the Kyuubi to it was to compare a drop of water to an ocean. It utterly terrified Yasaka. The power was enough to wipe out the planet and all the various pantheons and dragons for shits and giggles, with enough left over to recreate everything perfectly. A part of her mind was laughing triumphantly though. Now the yokai faction is the new leader, she thought, as each of the Biju and Naruto shrank back down, their powers restrained once more. What about you three? She asked, looking at Hinata and the two redheads. Ah, Hinata has yet to gain her form, she's still settling. Reina is a kitsune as well, 8 tails, but I've locked it off to 1 until she can control it. Kushina is actually a human, with some yokai due to a yokai sealed in her long ago. It's gone now, but she has a bit of the power left, Naruto explained, sorry. Yasaka nodded. Well, I think I've seen enough, she said dryly. I'd have to be stupid to not want you on our side after that display. The Biju all shared little smirks, the same thought going through their heads at once. She thought that was our true power. I held it down to 1 tail. Shukaku just rolled his eyes. Naruto-sama didn't even use 1 tail's worth of power, let alone fully release his seals. I can't wait to see that kitsune's face when she finds out our true powers. Oblivious to the Biju's deception, Yasaka continued talking. First, can you take us out of this dimension? She asked Naruto, who merely nodded. As the Kamui pulled her in, she covered her mouth with her left hand, hoping against hope that the trash can would be close enough to reach. So that's it for Chapter 1. I also have Chapter 2 done, and I'll be posting it as soon as I finish this one. Now, for the record, I have no idea what the area Yasaka calls home is supposed to look like, so I'm going with a compound on the outskirts of Kyoto, with a wide area illusion over it to make it invisible to humans. I sincerely doubt that that's what it is in canon, but so what, this is fanfiction. Anyway, I've also been working on what happens when a primordial gets bored. But my muse is only firing in spurts. I'll definitely get to that one though. Other than that, nothing much to say. Please review. I read every single one, even if I don't always reply. The 2 shits not given. Here's Chapter 2. It's definitely smaller, but I thought it was a good place to break it off. I might go back to it and add more later, since 4,000 words in Chapter 1 and close to 1,500 in Chapter 2 is not something I want to continue the trend of. Anyway, this shows a little of Naruto's new temperament after getting a message about whether he was going to be the same as the first story or not. The answer: obviously not. He found out his father was a manipulative shit and essentially cursed him to be tortured for all eternity. That leaves a mark on your psyche. Anyway, read and enjoy. Reviewing isn't necessary, but I like to see what you guys think of my stories. Tilda Dragon. Disclaimer. Do you think the owner of one of these major anime na series would be writing fanfiction about them? Dragon Dice Chapter 2. The 2 shits not given. Recap. New universe, HSDXD world, found by Yasaka, hired to work with the yokai faction, cause let's face it, having all 9 Biju plus the new Juubi would be the equivalent of having a nuke pointed at the other factions, showed Biju forms, and now are leaving the Kamui. After Yasaka, Reina, and Kushina managed to calm their stomachs And Kuno got angry at Yusaka for not letting her come into the Kamui with them. They all sat down to begin negotiation. So, from what I can tell with the information you've given us, you essentially need a guard, and if there is a battle in another place, you need a fast, hard-hitting force, right? Kurama asked Yusaka, who verified it with a nod. Among us the best at defending are Shukaku and Seiken. The former can create sand to trap or crush his enemies, and Seiken can make bubbles filled with acid, poisonous gas, explosive substances, the works. She's great at traps. I propose that in return for lodging and a stipend, those two will follow your orders, to a degree. None of us likes not being in control, but they will have to deal with it. Meanwhile, the fastest of us are myself, Chome, and Matabi, so we should be the response team. The others are in the middle, so they could reinforce either team as necessary, though I don't expect to need that. Naruto-sama, Hinata-sama, Reina, and Kushina are essentially outside of my jurisdiction, but I doubt you'll really need to worry about them. Kurama summed up, that work for you. Yusaka looked at him, thinking over what he said, before nodding, that is acceptable. Though if you intend to live in your giant forms, we have no place that could fit you. Also we'll need to make up a background story for all of you. Saying you're godlike beings from another dimension won't go over too well. Naruto shrugged. Just say we're yokai from another part of the world, the results of crossbreeding and experiments. To explain the different species and traits, I can copy any knowledge necessary for our alibi from the mind of someone who has it already, so feel free. Yusaka made a mental knot. To have one of the yokai that was good with hacking to make a cover for them and put it in the government's files. All right then, now the last thing is, where are you going to? A loud cry rang out, cutting her off. Grigori. A yokai outside yelled, 10. Naruto looked at Yusaka. Guess we're starting early, he quipped, pulling his blade from thin air, before walking towards the door, the other Biju following. Almost as soon as his foot touched the ground outside, Naruto blocked a light spear with his left index finger. Interesting. He looked at the spear, a dark grin spreading on his face. I want one. He held out his hand and a spear formed. Unlike the light spear, it wasn't just light, but a core of light surrounded by translucent writhing shadows, before solidifying into a solid object, able to be reused. He thought about the spear, ignoring 4 other spears that struck him in the head, heart, leg, and stomach repeatedly, each just bouncing off. He started paying attention once more, blocking the 5th that was aimed at his crotch, his face shifting from a smile to a grimace as he glared at the fallen angel dressed in black robes. You just fucked up, he growled, drawing his spear back. I'll call it Shunbin, he decided, about to throw it. Catch. He threw the newly named Shunbin Equinox, tearing through one of the 10 wings of the fallen angel, leaving a foot-wide hole. Naruto extended his hand and it reappeared in his grasp, the tip bloody. So you do have red blood. He looked at the fallen, who was still blasting light spears at him as the other Biju just watched, amused. Hey Kurama, what's the definition of insanity? He called, snickering a bit at the fallen angel's face, his pained and enraged expression darkening at the joke. All right, I've had my fun, and I've gotten a new weapon, so I think I'll let you live, Naruto said, catching one of the light spears in his mouth, biting it in half. But I'll be taking a memento. His yes narrowed, and the fallen angel screamed as he appeared behind the Grigori, one hand on the side of his neck, the other digging into the hole on the wounded wing. I wonder if these grow back. Well, you get to test it. Everyone averted their eyes, and most of the yokai covered their ears so as to not hear the wet ripping sound as Naruto tore off the Grigori's wing slowly as the fallen angel screamed in pain. His hands frantically grabbing at Naruto's arms but not moving them any faster or slower. Finally he fell to the ground as Naruto surveyed the wing that he held in his hand before turning back to him. Now get the fuck out of here before I get bored and decide to use your head as a ball. Go. The fallen angel didn't even bother to swear vengeance or try to sneak attack, or anything of the sort. He just stifled a sob as he glanced to where the wing had been, before a purple magical circle appeared below him, teleporting him away. Yusaka was stunned. When she had gotten the idea to hire them, she hadn't thought they would be this sadistic. Then again, the fallen angels and devils both had used yokai as target practice before, even going so far as to nearly cause the Nekosho species to go extinct. only 2 survivors. Damn, Shukaku whistled. He's pretty damn sadistic. Kurama glared at his younger brother. Shut it. I told you what he went through, so shut the fuck up or I'll turn you over to Hinata-sama. Shukaku paled even further, pleading with his brother to show mercy, getting a HMPH in response. He wasn't scared by much, but Hinata's power was at the same level as Kurama. And she was extremely protective of her mate, and if he knew one thing it was that insulting another guy in front of a girl that liked him lead to a swift and painful beating. He Ned that lesson with Matabi while she was crushing on Gyuki as a child. Now, they were just close. After learning what incest was, both had backed off. Hot, Hinata said, looking up at Naruto, Stan. Ding in midair with an ebony feathered wing in his hands, a hole through it. As much as I think many of you would like to stare at Naruto-san, I think most of you have work to do. Yasaka shouted, sending the watching yokai running. And you, she turned to Naruto, what was that? You left him alive, he's just going to want revenge now. Naruto looked at her and yawned. I couldn't give 2 shits about a weakling like that wanting revenge. He couldn't face any of us in 100 years. Even Shukaku is easily 10 times as strong as that idiot. I left him alive to send a message, keep away or die, ya know. Now I'm going to go get rid of both of the shits I didn't give in a more sanitary way, he said, sauntering towards the house she had been going to give them, reading her mind on where to go. See ya, he was dragging the wing behind him, though it hovered about an inch off the ground, a layer of solidified air keeping dirt off it. The other Biju and Hinata and Reina followed him, Kushina instead electing to talk to Yasaka. Don't think too badly of him, she said. Less than 2 days ago he learned the father that had abandoned him at his birth had put a kill seal on his lover, Hinata-chan. He gave Minato-tem a fate worse than death, but he's still shaken up about how close he came to losing her forever. After something like that, it's only natural that he's changed, for better or worse. Yasaka looked at her in surprise. His father tried to kill his lover. She asked, why? Kushina looked uncomfortable. Well, actually no, it's his story to tell. I would tell you but I don't want to lose my son. Again, please don't judge him before knowing the whole story. With that said, she ran after the others, leaving Yasaka gaping. Kushina was Naruto's mother. She had lost her son before. Did that mean she abandoned him too? Why would she call his father an idiot if she married the man? Too many questions and not enough answers. She resolved to ask him at a later date, after he had settled in more. Well, at least I know one thing, she thought wryly, things won't be boring with them around. Quote, so that's it for chapter 2. Yeah, he's a fucking sadist now. Deal with it. Actually he isn't really sadistic, but sometimes, well, I won't spoil it for you. Yes, he will be collecting trophies from any opponents that he sees as strong or skilled, but also he wants to commemorate his new weapon. Shunban meaning equinox, one of 2 days that have a perfectly equally long day and night. It's effective against both angels and devils, due to T's equal halves of light devils and darkness angels. I am aware that in canon there is no such weakness of the angels, but think of it like 2 opposing elements of equal strength. The light that is inherent in the angels is hurt by the darkness that makes up part of equinox, though on fallen and yokai it just is a spear. Albeit the force Naruto throws it with make it have a shell of air pressure that make any wound bigger. It will turn up in the future more than the sword he used in the first story. I decided that it was instant kill, not that being the Juubi and a primordial god is any better. So a less lethal weapon was dreamed up by the insanity in my head. Well, that's all for now. Soon I'll be starting to answer some of the questions at the end of the first story, and I have no doubt I'll get rage about some of my answers. Tilda Dragon, 3 Hidden Truths. Well, here we are again. Chapter 3, Start. Oh, and I say this at the end too, but please someone tell me how to translate the various styles into whatever Romanized Japanese language they're using. I know it isn't just English, since when I tried entering Lightning Release into an English to Romaji translator, it is completely different than Raiden. Some help is appreciated. I also am happy to say that I'm starting to game again. Anyone that's on Steam can friend me. My username is the same as here, smiley face. Disclaimer. I don't own Naruto. And from the messed up way Kishimoto has ruined the ending from Naruto, I wish he didn't either. Give it to the guy who wrote Siren, that was a pretty good ending, shish. A melis plug for one of my favorite manga. Cheeky smiley face. Hope you like it. Tilda Dragon. Chapter 3. 3 Hidden Truths. Time skip. 2 years. Naruto sighed again, bored. He hadn't been out to destroy something in months, no good fights recently. And Yusaka wouldn't let him go attack one of the factions. Well, more like he acceded to her requests to not do so, since she really couldn't stop any of them if they really wanted to do something. Hey, Naruto ni, Kuno said, entering the apartment complex that Naruto, the Biju, Hinata, and his sister and mother all shared. Ka-chan wants to see you. Naruto smiled. No matter how bored he was, Kuno always brightened up his day. The little Nine-Tails was almost impossible to hate, once you got past her aloof and uptight shell. She was the unofficial, little sister, of the group. Though she called Kushina Ka-chan as Naruto refused to do, still calling her Kushina-chan, though he had changed from San to Chan as they got a little closer. Oh, hey Ku-chan. He scratched the fox girl's head where she loved to be scratched. Do you know why? Kuno giggled, her ears perking up. It's a secret. She grinned. Come on, come on. He followed as she pulled on his hand, leading him out of the apartments and into the central building that was Yusaka's office, of sorts. He met the kitsune in question in one of the conference rooms, Kuno sitting in his lap as he pet her hair. Ah, Naruto-kun, Yusaka said. Good, you're here. I have a favor to ask, not as an employer but a worried mother, she began, as Naruto began to worry. The last favor, D asked led to him having to sit through a boring negotiation meeting with the Grigori leader, his power suppressed to less than a tail. He wore armor, and had his scent and voice camouflaged, but his power was hard to change. Due to its strength and magnitude, he had gotten so bored that he nearly ended up attacking Azazel and starting a war. He would have done it, too, but Azazel ended up wrapping up the meeting quickly after he started leaking bloodlust, acceding to many things that he would probably not have agreed to otherwise. He had told her in a flat, factual tone that if he had to see through another of those things he would blast the shit out of the other side just to stop being so bored. He also suggested that she use either Kushina or Kurama for those meetings, since they were still stronger than most if not all of the beings in this universe, the two dragon gods included. Plus they both had more tactics-oriented minds than him, since tactics were unnecessary if you can just tank any attack and dish out more damage than the other guy. As you know, Kuno is going to an academy soon, in a different prefecture entirely. I'd like you to go with her as a fellow student, since I know you can appear younger. The school she's going to is part of the Grigori clan's territory, and I'm a little worried of sending her alone, Yusaka said, her eyes showing worry as she looked into Naruto's Jubigan. Naruto nodded in understanding. The devils might make a play for her. If she joins a peerage, then you'd either have to give her up or accede to their wishes, right? HMPH. I really despise the idea of going to school again, but I guess if it's to protect the little kid here. Kuno puffed out her cheeks in displeasure. Moo, I'm not a kid anymore. Naruto laughed at her expression. You'll always be a kid to me, kid. Anyway, Yusaka, I'll do it on one condition. I get to play around with the devils, give them a little chaos if I feel like it. After all, what can they do to me? Nothing. Yusaka nodded reluctantly. All right, fine. I'll trust you, but you know Hinata will have to stay here, right? She asked, knowing of the two's nightly meetings. Then again, they didn't really try to keep them secret, instead reasoning that the more who knew, the more people would leave them alone while together, so as not to disturb them while they fucked like bunnies. Luckily, why Naruto was able to render his sperm impotent, or he might already have a dozen sons. Yeah, I know, Naruto shrugged. She can use the Hiraishin variation I made for her to visit. Yusaka understood, and said as much. Before Naruto asked the big question, when and where does Kuno start, then? In 2 weeks she's going to Kuo Academy, under the name Kuno Kitsui. I don't know if the last name means anything. I just picked something that started with kid and thought of it. If it does have a meaning, it was not intentional. I want you to go, using a fake name obviously, and protect her from any power plays by the devils. Naruto nodded. Serious, Menma Uchiha, he said with a small snicker. That'll be my alias. I'll use whatever age I should, but I hope you understand that I'm going to draw attention to myself. On purpose. That way I can deflect some attention from Kuno-chan. Yusaka agreed, and they started creating his new identity. Time skip. 2 weeks. Huo Academy, a typical school, home to mostly humans, with 2 devil peerages and a fallen angel. Not to mention the yokai that now attended, other than the Neko show that was in one of the peerages. Naruto looked like a 10-year-old, with Kuno the same. They were supposedly super prodigies, admitted with a full scholarship to the high school block. Naruto knew the real owner of the school, and had ensured that he would not know what his 2 genius students were without extreme investigation. Amazing what a few aversion seals and genjutsu would do. As they entered the front office to pick up their schedules, Kuno's usual outfit replaced by a sundress and Geta sandals, Naruto wearing his usual black outfit and cargo pants, genjutsu hiding the seals on his arms as they might get mistaken for tattoos. Ah, yes, Menma and Kuno, right. The office worker who gave them their schedules said brightly, the school council representative will be here shortly to show you around, since you two are so special. Menma, I'm going to call Naruto Menma from now on while he's in school, nodded silently, Kuno just following him to a seat. He was about 4 feet 9 inches in this age, and Kuno 4 feet 6 inches while in her fully human form. Naruto felt at the instant she walked in. A devil, medium to high class, and the leader of the student council. Ah, Sona, the receptionist greeted, here are our young prodigies. Sona merely nodded. Come with me please, she said in a near monotone voice, pushing her glasses up with one hand. They followed her out of the office and around the school, stopping at various classrooms on their schedules, which were the same. As the tour was winding down, Menma asked a question that had been bugging him for a while. Ah, Sona-san, what is that building over there? Menma asked, pointing to an oddly large building some ways away from the main areas. Is that a lab or something? Sona blinked in surprise. You can see that is the Occult Research Club building, due to the school cha. Erman being related to the leader of the orc, they got a building out of it. I'm sure Rias would be very interested in both of you. No shit. Damn, I should have recognized the illusion for what it was, rather than pointing it out. Menma griped to himself. Kuno frowned. What building? What are you talking about? She asked in confusion. Don't worry about it, Naruto said reassuringly. Anyway, I'm sure Senpai has other things to do than show us around. Arigato gozaimasu, Sona-senpai, for showing us around. Arigato. Kuno echoed as Sona nodded, face unreadable. Menma-san, we may call you in later to deal with some finalized paperwork, she said, getting a nod in reply as he turned to follow Kuno. Strange. Just who is Menma Uchiha to be able to see through an illusion cast by a high-class devil? Kuno is the name of the leader of the yokai faction, so true Yusaka sent her daughter to school, but who is he? A bodyguard, a friend, and is he human or something else? I didn't feel any yokai from him, so he can't be one of them, but just what can he be? Or was it some inborn quirk that allowed him to see through it? Sona pondered, eyes on his retreating back. I'll have to talk to Rias, she muttered, making tracks for the student council room and the rest of her peerage. Before she talked to Menma, she'd ask Rias if Sirzak-sama had said anything about the two, and hopefully learn who they were. Uchiha-san, a boy approached him at lunch. The president of the student council would like to see you, he proclaimed. Menma merely shrugging. MMK, he said, discreetly making an invisible shadow clone to watch over Kuno. Lead the way, Saiji-san. The boy nodded, leading him into the building and the room the student council met in, where he was faced with Sona and her peerage and Rias and her peerage, including one of the famous, perverted trio. Ah, Menma-san, Sona greeted him. I dislike beating around the bush, so I'll come right out and say it. Who and what are you? Menma faked confusion, inwardly laughing that they hadn't even waited a full day to check up on him and Kuno. What do you mean, Sona-san? You know my name. Ria stepped forward. What she means is your faction. She scowled. What race are you? Menma frowned. Huh, Asian, of course. He responded, deciding to play dumb. So you are human. Sona mused, a sacred gear then. Very well, Menma-san, I offer you a choice. I saw on your record that you live with a caretaker dropping by every few days and have no family. Either stay here and listen to what I have to tell you, or leave now and don't receive the offer. She stated clearly, piercing eyes staring into him. It was obvious that she expected to pick option 1, or she wouldn't have brought up Menma's solitude and lack of family. Which meant he immediately turned around and walked out of the room, heading to class as the bell rang, leaving behind a shocked and silent room. Did I go too far? Sona asked Rias eventually. I wanted to have him hear us out. I didn't expect him to react so poorly to the mention of his family. Rias frowned at her friend. He's lived alone for so long that he probably doesn't even know what a family is like. Therefore he sees it as unnecessary. If you want him you should do what I do. I'm sure you can manipulate a stray. Sona grimaced at the thought. Maybe. Has your BR other said anything about the Kyuubi girl though? Rias nodded. We're supposed to leave her alone. Let her know of our existence but not try to get her as a piece unless the opportunity naturally appears. Menma, though, is fair game. Sona nodded again. Fine. I'll shoot for this weekend. Rias said goodbye and left then, leaving Sona and her peerage to plan the death and rebirth of one Uchiha Menma. Naruto was walking with Kuno home from school on Friday when he felt it. A devil's presence, but warped, astray. Hey Kuno, I'm going to take care of something, he said softly. A stray dog is nearby. She nodded, recognizing their pre-set-up code. Don't be long. Naruto nodded, staying in his Menma disguise as he turned and entered an alleyway, acutely aware of the people following him, and the ones herding the devil towards him. When he finally saw it as he reached a sparsely populated part of town, he was not impressed. It looked like a centaur, with huge-ass teeth and hooves that left burned imprints in the ground. Yet still, if that was all, it was nothing. The presences that he had felt were watching, no doubt waiting for when to intercede. He gained a little smirk, as he contemplated how to do this. Die, the devil yelled, charging at him with low Jonin speed. Kuden, Kami no Arashi, Naruto whispered as the sky changed in a small area above him, a black cloud about 15 feet in diameter forming before starting to rain lightning down at the devil and him. The devil flinched every time a bolt struck near him, whereas Naruto merely laughed, before extending his arm into the air, drawing on the lightning like a battery. Raiden, Raryu no Jutsu. A giant dragon made entirely of electricity formed out of the next bolt, its twisting movements fluid and sinuous, captivating the stray as he watched the deadly creature. Be gone from my sight, Naruto said coldly, before the 70-foot-long dragon flew at the stray, who whimpered, Mommy, before vanishing in a dome of lightning. When it faded, the stray was still alive, if barely, and Naruto picked him up before throwing him in a seemingly random direction, in truth directly at a gaping Sona. Task complete, he turned to leave, humming, Another one bites the dust, by Queen as he walked away. I wonder what they'll do next, he thought with a small smile. I honestly didn't expect them to act so soon. I guess Sona-san is more desperate than I thought. Sona was in fact still sitting on her rear in an alleyway, the fried body of the stray devil they had herded towards Menma laying near her, his breathing cutting out after a minute or so. Her eyes were wide with disbelief as she watched the scorch marks created by the localized lightning storm Menma had created started to fade, the ash marks seeming to blow away in a small gust of wind. Did you see that? She whispered to Tsubaki, her queen. I wasn't hallucinating. Correct. Tsubaki's eyes were just as wide. If you were, I was sharing it, she said, echoing Sona's amazed tone. He created a storm out of nothing, rained down lightning like it was, well, rain, and used it to create a dragon made of electricity, killing a medium-class stray devil like he was swatting a fly. I just don't know what to say. As the rest of her peerage approached, the same question was on the forefront of each of their minds. Uchiha Menma, just who are you? Quote, so let's see if I understand this, Yusaka said, sitting in her soft swivel chair, staring at Naruto with her hands on her temples, rubbing away. You were approached by the heir to the Citri family, with the heir of the Grimoire family with her, and offered a family, or you could leave then. And you just left, and didn't ever inform me of it. Now, earlier today you were walking Kuno home from school, and sensed a stray devil, going to kill it. You knew that people were following you and watching, yet you still created a thunderstorm out of midair and used a giant dragon made of lightning to kill it before walking away. Never acknowledging the ones following you. Do I have it right so far? Naruto nodded, a grin on his face. I wonder what they'll do next. He mused out loud. I doubt that plan was Sona-san's idea. It seems more like the sort of thing that the Grimoire heir would do. Sona seems more logical and calculating than her, but also too cautious. Well, I'll see when it happens. Yusaka glared at him, her eyes narrowed at his seeming failure to grasp the seriousness of the situation. Naruto, she said sharply, this is a real problem. If you end up underestimating them and get killed, you likely won't be able to fight back if you're revived. Their pieces are bound to the king mentally, and if the king gives a direct order, the pieces usually can't disobey. If that happens, they'll use you to eliminate us in the heavens and Rigori. The devils are more aggressive than the yokai faction. They won't be satisfied with using you as a deterrent. They'll send you out to kill your family. The other Biju and Kushina-chan, Reina-chan, Hinata-sama, even Kuno and I. Now Naruto's eyes widened in realization. Oh, so that's what you're worried about. He laughed. Yeah, not gonna happen. Even if they did revive me somehow, I can easily break any mental limits. In the world we come from, there were people with watered-down versions of my eyes. Those mutations, called Sharingan, could trap people in an unbreakable illusion, or even twist the mind of someone without them noticing and control them from their own mind. They also made it so that their illusions and most mental techniques were absolutely useless on them. My eyes are the true deal, easily 1,000 times more powerful than the strongest Sharingan to ever exist, so breaking a me. NTAL tie that is no doubt weak since they haven't had anyone like me try to test it before, would be child's play. And that's even if they could revive me, but since I literally can't die, it's all academic. Yusaka's glare intensified. Everything can die, she growled. Even Great Red or Ophis could be killed if we knew how. They're mortal, they just can't die of old age or disease. Naruto shook his head, before drawing Shunban and stabbing it into his forehead, piercing his skull and leaving it sticking about a foot out the back of his head as he stared her down. As I said, Yusaka, I literally can't die. My body is made of energy itself. Trying to kill me is useless. I don't have blood, I don't have bone, I don't have flesh, except when I will it. I could be disintegrated into nothingness and my consciousness can reform. I can overcome any seal aimed at me, any technique absorbed, anything. I told you before, I absorbed a primordial god, a being that makes the combined power of ever. Why thing in this universe look like a squirt gun compared to a nuclear missile? And I will protect Kuno, she's like family to me. That's why I don't take anything seriously, because I know whatever happens I will survive and outlive it. That's why I try to not think about things too seriously, and let my emotions rule me mostly. Because if I end up thinking about things too much, my thoughts turn to my situation. Situation? Yusaka asked, trying to not be put off by speaking to someone with a spear through their head. Please remove that, it's rather distracting. He obeyed before looking her in the eyes, all humor, all levity. All joking demeanor gone, in its place was a scared look, covered up before she could confirm it. My situation. There are 3 things I haven't told the others. I'm trusting you here, Yusaka. What do you think immortality means? He asked, looking at her intently. True immortality means never dying, no matter what happens, she responded, though many thin GS in this universe that call themselves immortal, just won't die of old age or disease. They can be killed still. Naruto nodded. True immortality is what I have. Think about what it'd be like. Hinata, the Biju, Kushina, Reina, you, Kuno, everyone will die eventually. The beings you call immortal can actually die of old age, but it'd take millennia to do so. The Biju are the same way, as are Hinata, Kushina and Reina. Yokai are that way, the dragons are the same way, devils, angels, Rigori, everything has an end. Except me, I will be around when everyone I know is dead, when the only Vement on this planet is wind stirring the sand that used to be cities, blowing among the withered sticks that used to be trees, and watch the sun rise on a planet with nothing else on it. I will be alive when everything on Earth dies. I will be alive when the sun goes nova and the entire solar system is destroyed. I will be alive when the galaxy eventually dies. Yasaka, I will be alive after the universe itself collapses back into nothingness. Think about that clearly for a moment. I will be around to watch my family and loved ones age to dust, to bury them with my own hands. I can't die, no matter what happens, whatever it is. I will endure it and carry on. Never-ending loneliness is what awaits me in the end. When everything in every universe is gone, the universe is collapsed in nothing. But an endless void of not even blackness, no color or life in the void. I am nigh omniscience, the closest thing to it you will ever encounter. I can read the future, shape it as I wish, change the past. Do almost anything, except save myself from the curse of immortality. I could revive my loved ones over and over, but that would only be dooming them to the same fate as me, as their minds and souls wore down from being revived so many times. I could create universes to entertain me, but that would just be postponing the inevitable. I can't even do the same thing as the original Juubi, the primordial god I absorbed allowed his power to be sealed so it could die when its power was taken, to save itself. Nobody will be able to absorb me. My power has grown to unprecedented levels. Now think of how I act. My jokes, my happy-go-lucky lifestyle, my mercurial temperament, my desire to live while I can, that's all a coping mechanism. I hate reflecting on the future, on the endless void that awaits me in the end. Yasaka shivered as she stared into his Juubigan. When she actually thought about what true immortality meant, she was scared too. Humans claimed immortality would be a gift, but he knew the truth. True immortality meant loneliness and boredom would eventually be the only things you knew. You would watch as everyone and everything turned to dust. There was no way around it. He was scared. I'm sorry, she forced out, unused to saying those words. I didn't think. No, you didn't. He spat, looking away. Just, please don't tell the others what I've told you now. I don't want their pity. I don't want their comfort. I just want them to be happy. I told you this so you know that I won't let anything happen and you don't have to worry about your daughter, but please don't repeat it. She nodded, catching something in his voice as he said the word, daughter. That's why, she stated suddenly, new sorrow in her eyes. That's why Hinata isn't pregnant yet, despite your nightly sessions. He cut her off with a growl, don't want any child to have to be cursed with the same fate. Yes. I am approximately 80% sure that any child I conceive will contain my true immortality and most of my power, though they won't reach me. I could never condemn an innocent child to that, let alone my own. I've only ever given one person true immortality, and that was as a punishment. The ultimate punishment. His thoughts were on his father, as he said that, thinking of his curse for the man. He had given Jiraiya and Tsunade limited immortality, Aparo. Die of his true immortality, but they could essentially choose to die when they wished. Until then, they were just as immortal as he was. Yasaka opened her mouth to say something more, but he pushed his chair back with excessive violence. This conversation is over, he growled. I'm going to find something to murder. She just nodded. The conversation had given her a unique view on how he saw life, and it scared her. He would do anything for entertainment, desperate for a way to occupy his mind. His sadistic fighting, his way of just letting things happen and rolling with it, his uncaring persona. It was all just to escape his own mind. There was only one limit. She realized he wouldn't hurt one of the people he cared for, the Biju, Hinata, Kushina, Reina, and now Kuno. She had no doubt if she hurt Kuno and he found out, she would be killed slowly. He was like a desperate man, with both everything and nothing to lose at the same time, and was unable to stop the inevitable march of fate. Once he was out of her meeting room, she finally allowed tears to form on her face, the tears she had held in all meeting. He didn't want her pity. He didn't want people to focus on him with sorrow and pity. He wanted to live as much as he could. She couldn't blame him for that. The end. Remember to subscribe and like this video. See you in the next video.